In this short tutorial, we're going to take a look at the preferences for Instant Song Presenter, which is basically the default settings that will apply to all items in Instant Song Presenter. So we're going to start by going to the Preferences screen by clicking on that button. It pops up a window that has all of your preference settings here, which basically corresponds to the default settings for Instant Song Presenter. It's also where you can set things like the presentation monitor and which one that's going to be, whether it's going to be your secondary, which is the default, or whether you're actually going to use your primary screen, which you might want to use your primary screen if it tends to play video back better or something like that. In that case, you'd move all your control panels over to your secondary screen and use your primary screen as your output presentation screen. We're going to leave it as secondary for this. You can set here whether titles, when they're displayed, are set to uppercase by default. Those can be changed individually once you put them into the playlist, but for these, again, these are the defaults. Also, whether you display one phrase at a time on slides, the default setting for that, and whether you're going to play audio accompaniment files. If you've gone through and put a bunch of audio accompaniment files into your database, attached those to your items in your database, this can be a global way of turning those on and off rather than having to turn them off individually within the item or turn them off individually within a playlist or back on. You can globally turn that on or off here. Also, we've got the auto run interval, which basically when you use the auto run function where you put an item into the playlist and hit the auto run button, it'll start going through your playlist without you having to interact with it at all. This is the interval that would be the difference, in between each slide. So every 7 seconds, it's going to basically go forward to the next item in your playlist. Now you've got transition effects, and we have two things here: the transition effect and the text effect. Difference being that the transition effect applies to the very first time you hit a verse or chorus in this item, and then the text effect is for each individual verse within that item. So there can be a little bit of a different effect on those two different things. If you wanted a more splashy effect when that song first starts, and then just have basic effects in between each of the verses, that's how you can set that here. And then of course setting the speed, whether it's slow, medium, or fast for each of these items. This is also where you'd set your CCLI license number in here, and you can also access your registration code here if you need to re-enter it right there. Now this is the default background that you can set simply by clicking on it, and it'll bring up a dialog, and you can choose another background if you'd like something different as your default background. Again, all of that can be changed within a playlist, but this will be the one that acts as the default whenever you're using just the defaults. Now the last item on here is the Screen Designer button, which we will go into in its own tutorial. But this is the place where you can go in and set the default screen design. But that's all for this short tutorial on the preferences.